Perfect. Thank you. This is all the new information, so this is the important stuff. All right, so now that we've talked about all the parts of the cell, all the components, all the organs, the cytoskeleton, all of the above, now we're going to talk about how do cells work. Cells, their primary job is to move stuff in and out. They produce stuff, they got to move it out. They need stuff, they got to move it in. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about with this physiology or how cells work is going to be based in how do I move stuff in and out of the cell? So let's first talk a little bit about the fluid. We know that cells, the majority of what makes up a cell is fluid. We have our cytoplasm, we have our nucleoplasm. This is the fluid part because our cells are composed primarily of water. And it is a constant balancing act to make sure that the amount of fluid on the inside of the cell is equal to the amount of fluid on the outside of the cell. So we do have some terminology. Intracellular, well, we know from med term, inter means inside. Intracellular means inside the cell. Extracellular, extra meaning outside. Extracellular, this is fluid outside of the cell. And then we have a type of fluid that we find specifically within tissues. This is not found in blood. This is not the fluid found in and directly outside of our cells. This is stitial. Stitial specifically means in the tissue. And so interstitial means fluid in the tissue. So we have our intracellular inside the cell, extracellular directly outside the cell, interstitial inside the tissue. You guys learned a term in medical terminology called edema. Edema. Edema is swelling due to an accumulation of this tissue fluid. All right, so this is all review. This is other stuff that we have in and out of the cell. We have the ions. Remember ions, we've gained or lost an electron. We now have a charge. Some of our electrolytes would be examples of sodium, chloride, potassium. If they have a positive charge, they're known as a cation. If they have a negative charge, they're known as an anion, or cation and anion if you is Canadian. All right, so let's talk about how does stuff move in and out of our cells? Well, we've got a couple of different ways we can do this. Some of the ways we don't need any energy to do it. It's going to be a passive. Passive means we don't need any energy. Like I'm super passive, super chill right now, man. I'm not expending any energy. Active is going to need energy. And we have ways that both require no energy and then some that require some energy. We're going to talk about each of these. So passive, they don't require the ATP. Active, they do require the ATP. And all we're referring to now is moving crap in, moving crap out. That's it. That's our whole point right now. And how are we doing it? All right, so our cell membrane, remember our phospholipid bilayer, our cell membrane, it can be impermeable to some things, meaning that I can't get it moved. It's not coming in or it's not going out. It can be freely permeable to other things, meaning that some stuff can't pass back and forth through the membrane at all. Other things can pass very freely with no problem. Permeable simply means passing back and forth through a membrane. Other things might be selective. So why do I have this picture right here? Well, let me explain this to you. For those of you that have been living in a cave, this is a depiction of a game called Red Rover, Red Rover. I'm assuming everyone has heard of Red Rover, Red Rover. This is a wonderful demonstration of permeability. So the goal, again, for those of you that don't know Red Rover, the goal is that each of these lines now represent a cell membrane. This is one cell, draw it here. Here we have a different cell. Here I have a molecule of something that wants to permeate this cell. Everybody with me so far? All right, so in the game Red Rover, this is my cell. One of three things is, well, technically, one of two things is going to happen. Now we'll say three things. This guy is going to, I don't know what this kid's doing. He's not ready. He's not prepared. He's standing on one foot. He's having a giggle. He's not balanced. He's the weakest link. This little girl right here knows exactly what's about to happen. She's leaning away because she knows this guy's about to get flattened. I digress. That has nothing to do with movement of stuff in the cell. All right, so what's going to happen is this guy, he is going to go and very easily break through. He permeates the cell very easily. This would be freely permeable, right? In fact, I'm willing to bet they just let go. They just let go of their hands and let it in. They're just like, no, I don't want to try and stop you. One of the other things that could happen is that they don't undo hands. And this guy comes in contact and he is denied. He doesn't get through. This would be impermeable, meaning that I was unable to penetrate. So that's what we're talking about. This is just kind of a mental idea of how stuff can either freely and very easily move through, or you're going to have a little bit of resistance, or you're going to have complete resistance and it's not moving through at all. All right, so we're going to talk about some passive transport options. Passive meaning no energy needed. We do not need any ATP in order to do this movement. The four processes we'll discuss: diffusion, facilitate. Oh my God, that's a neat word. To facilitate means to help out. I am facilitating you in learning this information. I am helping you. I am assisting you. We have osmosis, which is probably a word you guys have heard before if you've ever been in any kind of like high school science class. And we have filtration. So we're just going to talk about each of these individually. What is happening and why do we not need energy to move stuff via one of these four processes? So I'll give you guys a minute. We are going to go through these individually. All right, here we go. Diffusion. Let's talk about it. Diffusion uses something called the concentration gradient. Let me explain what that is. So you have, it's pre-COVID. I love in only like 5 months, we suddenly gauge all of our lives by pre-COVID and post-COVID. It's just crazy. Pre-COVID, I have gone to the most amazing Texans game and they have won. They are hugely victorious. Huzzah. And I am inside the NRG Stadium. And you know, when you leave the game, you're leaving a concert and you are literally shoulder to shoulder and you're just moving with the crowd. You really have no other choice but to move with the crowd. I'm a tiny little short person. Sometimes I'm so packed in like a sardine, I feel like I could just lift my feet off the ground and the crowd would just carry me. There is a very high H for high concentration of people inside that stadium. Is everybody with me so far? As we are moving, we want to move out here to the parking lot where all of our cars are. Out here, there is a very low concentration of people. So I am moving from a high to a low concentration. This does not take any energy on a cellular level. It would be as if I just picked my feet up and I'm being carried along. It's you just go with the crowd. There's no energy needed. I'm moving here from an area of high to low concentration. Another example would be, you know what? I'm going to go get to that one in a second. So right now we're just going to stick with energy. This is energy. Now there are going to be some factors. Think about you moving through the crowd. How big are you? That's going to determine how easily are you exiting energy? How easily are you passing through this membrane to the lower concentration? The small, tiny little people are easily able. Big, huge, hulking guys like Lucas on the Umbrella Academy, they're going to have a little bit more trouble. They're still going to be able to get there. This is going to take them a little bit longer. Are they made of fat? Fat passes through fat with no issue. Remember, if this is our cell, right? Energy is now our cell. This is our cell membrane. Our cell membrane is lipid, phospholipid. Fat moves easily through fat. We're going to look at what is the charge. Certain molecules, ions, are going to move much easier. And then finally, the temperature. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm leaving the concert, when I am leaving the football, I am packed like a sardine. I think everybody in here has experienced this. Maybe not with a football game. I don't care. I don't judge. But you've gone to your favorite band and you're I don't like people. I need a bubble. I'm like, people are disgusting. But you're packed in and you're sweaty and you can smell everybody and they're all been drinking. You can smell their nasty breath and their BO, and you touch one and they're moist and it's just, I'm telling you, I'm hoofing it as fast as I possibly can to get the heck out of there. Temperature is going to increase the speed of motion. So these are all of the things that are going to impact me moving from a high concentration to a low concentration. Now, we have another term here. I'm going to explain this one too. The concentration gradient. All this means is how much difference is there between the high and the low? Here I've got a picture. Here is my high concentration demonstrated by the top of this slide and my low concentration. There is a relatively good distance, right? The higher is much higher than the lower, if that makes sense. And I'm going to slide very easily and pretty quickly. If I don't have a lot of difference, you see how this high and this low, there's not a whole lot of difference between these two. This now becomes the lamest slide ever on the planet because I'm going to just like, just very slowly, still don't need energy, but I'm very slowly going to go from high to low. So the greater the concentration, the faster it's going to move. Does that make sense to everybody? Just concentration gradient, what's the difference? And think of a slide. The greater the distance, so if here's my high and here's my low, my goodness, that's going to be the fastest of them all, because I have a huge difference between my high and my low. So the greater the difference between these two, the faster things are going to move. All right, I gotta turn my air conditioner on. Hang on one second. Let me not control you. Sorry, I didn't want to control any of your she who shall not be named in case you have one. Alexa. She controls the temperature in my house. All right, so here I just have a couple of more pictures. You guys are very visual, and so I've included a lot of pictures. This is just another example of diffusion. I've used NRG. We're leaving from a high concentration of people to a low concentration of people. Here I have a glass. This is my solvent. Remember, this is the thing I'm mixing stuff in. Here is my solute. The molecules are going to move from an area of high to low. I have a high concentration of red. I have a low concentration of red. We can see that the red now moves until it is evenly dispersed. Another great example, bam, farts. Farts is just, they're fun to talk about. They're funny to talk about. Let's talk about them. So, I don't know about you guys, but Maisie can be pretty farty. You guys aren't going to probably meet her next week, my Maisie dog. I'm going to bring her in. You guys are going to do some stuff to her. She's pretty farty, and she has her own chair. She's got her own easy chair. And sometimes she'll toot. And right around her, and we've all done this, or you toot. You're home alone, or you're not. I don't judge. And you toot. And right around you, ooh, holy smokes, it is noxious. It is a smell. It is super strong. And then it's a high concentration. But what happens? It starts to drift, doesn't it? It starts to move to a lower concentration. And finally, your significant other is like, oh my God, what died up your butt? Holy smokes, we should get that checked out. A sweeter smelling example of diffusion is the plugins. You know, like the Glade plugin. I love the ones from Bath and Body Works. They're called, I think, Wallflowers. They come with a little thing that looks like a light bulb with liquid. You put it in, and it has nice, lovely, smelly smell. If you go right up to the plug-in that plugged into the wall, holy smokes, it is super strong. The smell is so super strong. But as it moves through my house, the smell weakens because it's moving from a high concentration to the low concentration. And now right here, I'm like, oh, I just get a little brief whiff. I get a little whiff of it, and it smells lovely. Guys, those are literally called diffusers. It's diffusing the smell from a high to a low concentration in your house. All right, so the next passive movement is called facilitated diffusion. Okay, diffusion, we're still moving from high to low. But now I have a bit of help. Now you can see here, this is going to be for things like super amazingly big molecules. So this molecule that I've just circled right here, do you see how big it is? Do you see if I tried to force it through this bilayer, it's going to rip it wide open, it's going to destroy it, probably kill the cell. I'm still moving from a high concentration, because we have many of them here. We have really none of them here. But this time I've got a helper. I've got this helper right here. Let me give you my analogy from NRG. The Texans have won. Huzzah. I am moving from high concentration NRG Stadium to low concentration the parking lot. And as I'm walking, I look at my significant other and I say, but My legs are so tired. My legs are tired and I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the car. Because I'm a spoiled brat. I am a spoiled princess brat. And so he goes, okay, and he says, hop on. So I jump up on his back and he gives me a piggyback ride. Facilitated diffusion. I'm still moving with the concentration gradient. I'm moving from high to low. This is the difference between these two, is my concentration gradient. But I'm getting some help. I'm being facilitated. That's the idea behind facilitated diffusion. Do I have any comments, questions, concerns so far? Everybody's okay? Everyone's on the bus? Amazing. Here's just a picture. Here's my molecule. It's moving from high to low, high, with the concentration gradient. And here's somebody who is helping, facilitating it. This is my little visual learners. Here we are at number 3. See, I like sitting here because I can draw all over the screen. I can't do this when I'm at school. Here we have number 3. This is osmosis. Now, the thing with osmosis, it is passive, but it is only referring to water. It is only referring to the movement of water. So it is not the molecules that are moving. It is the water that is moving to equalize. So if we look here, here I have a very high concentration. Look at the tiny white dots. Very high concentration, very concentrated. And here I have a dilute concentration. Basically, what I want to do is I want these to be equal. I want them to be even Steven. So what I can do, now I'm not moving any of these molecules. These little white dots stay exactly where they're supposed to be. It's the water that I am going to move. And by osmosis, even though now the water levels are not equal, and that's okay, but my molecule levels are equal. So the movement of this water to equalize the concentrations, this is going to be called osmosis. I don't think I'm telling you any shocking brand new revelations with osmosis. You probably at least heard the definition before. All right, so I have some terms that I want to talk to you about here. ISO. Now again, we're talking about pressures. We are talking about concentrations. What does the medical term ISO mean? Anybody? ISO.
Equal or alike.
Very nice. Equal. So if the yeah, and it's all right here, hooked on phonics, guys. The concentration is the same on the inside of the cell to the outside of the cell. This is called isotonic. Now, these other two terms are specifically going to refer to the comparison from the inside. So hypo, what does hypo mean?
Low or deficient.
Low, below, or deficient. So if I'm referring here to the inside of the cell and I'm saying hypo, this means that I have got the low pressure or the low concentration on the inside and a higher concentration on the outside. Tell me, is this going to promote stuff to move in or out of the cell?
Inward.
Yeah, remember concentration gradient, we're going to move from high to low. I'm going to give you an example here that I think you might be able to relate to. Here, if I have hyper I'm still referring to the inside in comparison. Hyper means excessive. So in this case, the inside of the cell, oh, this should not say outside is more concentrated than outside, because that doesn't make any sense. Let's fix that. This word is inside. Inside here, hyper, outside, hypo. Now tell me, in what direction is stuff going to move? It's going to move out of the cell. It's going to move in the concentration gradient. Okay, so let me give you a practical example.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
So when you change
I'm not getting you.
They are both the same definition side.
I need you to repeat that, Avery, because you broke up. Oh, I don't have my chat. Let me. Yeah, so let me fix that. I know that they both said the same thing. That was a typo. So this, oops. Stop. So this, do you guys see the PowerPoint? Okay, this should say inside. It shouldn't be the same. That was a typo.
Wait, I have a question.
Sure.
Well, now that you changed it, it says the same thing as like the middle sentence. Just
Wait a minute. Okay, let me look. Extracellular fluid is hyper. Oh. I'm confusing myself here. Let me just go in here. All right. Oops, that's not what I want. Where did you go? There you are. I have too much stuff open here. All right, so now I've gone in and fixed it. Here's what I'm gonna do, guys. Let's revisit hypo-isotonic. I've only got a couple of minutes left and I've thoroughly confused everybody. So let's toss this whole iso, hyper, hypo. We're gonna revisit on Monday, where I am going to have visual aids and I will be able to demonstrate a little bit easier. So I'll go in and fix it. So right now, just consider that we finished our lecture on osmosis. Discard. So I will go through and we will make sure that everybody is clear with all of the definitions.